news with Gina.
The news with Gina Grad.
So Joe Biden spent his Friday responding to 27-year-old sexual assault allegations made against him by Tara Reade, different Tara Reade, a former Senate staffer. And I'll just go right to the clip. Here's a clip of him on MSNBC's show Morning Joe telling Mika Brzezinski that he didn't do it.
And please, to our viewers, please excuse the graphic nature of this, but I want to make sure that there is no question as to what we're talking about. She says in 1993, Mr. Vice President, that you pinned her against the wall and reached under her clothing and penetrated her with your fingers. Would you please go on the record with the American people? Did you sexually assault Tara Reade?
No, it is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened. And it didn't. It never happened.
I'm going to buy some land in Pennsylvania and just kind of become a shaker. I'm realizing, like, build wagon wheels all day and like smoke a pipe,
just
like
get away from it all.
Churn butter.
I'm an atheist who hosted Loveline for 10 years, and I feel like we've just jumped the shark. Like everybody's got their hand in somebody's pussy. The two guys for president are both accused of grabbing pussies. Like this is insane. And you know, I always think about timing. So it's always like you think about, as it pertains to sort of the legal system or a sort of like, oh, we're going to make an example of that guy. Minka, is it Minka? That's her name,
I think. M-I-K-A.
Mika Brzezinski. Yeah.
Mika drilled the shit out of Biden. Like, she just fucking won after him.
Good. And she should do.
Right. But I mean, he goes there because he thinks, okay, this is a friendly place to go, and she goes berserk on him, which is good, which is fine. But here's the interesting thing: as you think about it from a timing standpoint, she or they or whatever mainstream, they were sort of accused of like, oh, you're not going hard enough on Biden. You're not going hard on Biden. You went hard on Kavanaugh. You're ignoring Biden. So then she does this interview with him, and he goes to a place that he thinks of friendlier waters, but she has to overcompensate and prove to everyone, no, we're not going softer. So he then gets a worse shake. If he'd gone over to Fox, he would have gotten less grilling than MSNBC because she has to overcompensate for being, so you're not a journalist. You didn't even bring this up until blah, blah, blah. So she went nuts on him.
I'm sure everyone was expecting softball questions from her, or at least a friendlier, tone or approach or whatever. And she brought it.
She brought it, man.
When do you think Biden or someone from Biden's camp is going to say, look, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but it doesn't seem like the American public really gives a shit about that kind of thing anymore.
Bold strategy, Cotton.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like we're playing this, sort of game in a way because we already have a president. It's like, so
I don't.
Do we care or don't we?
No, we don't. We don't care.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, some happier news, a bit of a surprise to some. Jerry Seinfeld returns to stand up on Tuesday, tomorrow, as you hear this. His first comedy special in 2 decades will stream on Netflix. It's called Jerry Seinfeld, 23 Hours to Kill. They paid him $100 million for the rights to his NBC sitcom, the series Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, and this new hour-long stand-up special that's according to The Hollywood Reporter.
He is like one of these, when you hear about like the estate of Elvis Presley or the estate of Michael Jackson made X amount like after he died. Mm-hmm. Seinfeld's like that, but he didn't die.
He's getting
alive.
Fucking sitcom went off the air, and he's made $200 million every year since the thing went off the air. Like, it's supposed to go off the air, and then you're supposed to go out and do local dates. You're not supposed to just keep printing money.
Open supermarkets.
And the thing, like, Comedians, Cars, Getting Coffee, it's like that show was literally created because he didn't feel like working. Like, I like driving cars. I like talking to Norm Macdonald. Just put a fucking GoPro in that Duesenberg and let's just cruise around and talk. Oh, and I like coffee. Like, it's really like $100 million to do what we would all love to do all day, which is go find a super funny, contemporary comedian who we go way back with and just have a good time, have some coffee. Yeah.
Well, I pulled a clip from the trailer. It seems like something that it's on brand. It's patented Seinfeld, and I think you'll enjoy it.
All things we do to convince ourselves our lives don't suck. And I know that because I know that everyone's life sucks. Your life sucks. My life sucks too. Perhaps not quite as much. Never feel bad that your life sucks. The greatest lesson you can learn in life, sucks and great are pretty close. You go to a baseball game, you have a hot dog. The hot dog is cold. The bun is not toasted. The vendor is an ex-con in a work release program. You love that hot dog every time. Does it suck? Yes. Is it great? Yes. That's how close they are. I say to you that sucks and great are the exact same thing. You have an ice cream cone, you're walking down the street, the ice cream falls off the top of the cone, hits the pavement, sucks. What do you say? Great.
So Seinfeld.
Yeah, we're working on his buddy, writer Barry Martyr, who does all those Cars and Coffee and stuff, and Seinfeld as well. We're working on a doc of his letters from a nut with Seinfeld and those guys. So we're just kind of getting started on that, but more to come.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Not quite the payday he's enjoying over on Netflix, but okay.
Doing all right. When I saw that special with Ray, we went to some benefit years ago, Randy Wang and I, for Seinfeld, Ray Romano, and Jason Alexander were the three the three comedians. And of course we were there to see Seinfeld. We couldn't wait. But Ray Romano actually ended up just blowing my mind. And I remember at the end there was a Q&A, and Jason Alexander was hosting it and said to Seinfeld, like, why do you have 50, multi-million-dollar cars? You don't need 50 Jaguars or whatever he has. He goes, I don't need one expensive car.
Right.
But here we are. He enjoys and sort of doesn't apologize for it.
And he bought Porsche race cars, and that, there's a bunch of different ways you can go with a car. You can be a rapper and go out and get yourself a brand new Lamborghini Huracan and then have it wrapped in some sort of satin gray, whatever. And the car you paid $275,000 for will be worth $150 in 2.5 years. Like that's you can go that direction. You can buy a classic car, a Duesenberg or a Woody or an old Corvette or something, buy it and have it just sort of like incrementally go up over the years, like a T-bill or something.
Like an investment, yeah.
Right. But if you bought the right race cars, especially Porsche race cars, like stuff that ran Le Mans in the 70s and stuff like that, you made a huge return on your investment. I mean, literally, he's probably, I don't know if he has a 917. You can check that out, Max Pat. I know he did. Or he probably does. I mean, his 917, he could have paid $4 million for, but it could be $27 million today. Yeah. Like,
who do you think has a more expensive collection? Steve Martin's paintings or Jerry Seinfeld's cars?
God, that's a good question. I don't know enough about paintings to know, though I know they go bananas. And Bald Brian, buckle up.
Let's hear it.
I was talking to Farley cousin who runs Ford, right. And he was telling me that Axl Rose had one of the most significant Ford race car collections.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, I was thinking about those guys like late 80s, early 90s, like they had publishing royalties at the right time. Like it doesn't, it doesn't mean as much now, but like if you're fucking Axl Rose and you co-wrote all the songs on one of the biggest selling albums of all time, you really don't have to work if you don't really want to.
What? Yeah. So maybe Max Paddock can look. I knew nothing of that, but yeah. All right, Rich, keep getting richer.
Yep. Well, NBC News reports that all schools and colleges in New York State will remain closed for the rest of the academic year. That's according to Governor Cuomo. He said the decision was made to keep the state's millions of students, I think it is about 4 million students, and teachers safe during this pandemic. That goes for public and private schools. Colleges all switched to distance learning in mid-March. Remote learning will continue at schools. They still are undecided on summer school because those programs should actually be starting, within a month or so, and they don't know exactly what they're going to do with that yet.
I think this is going to bite them in the ass because I think a lot of people aren't going back. You learn from home for 3 weeks, you'll go back. You do it for 7 months, you might not go back. A lot of people are going like, I don't need the housing. I don't need, you could live in an apartment in Indiana and save a lot of money and take classes at NYU. Or wherever in Boston or whatever else.
Well, and to your point, the chief executive of Barclays has come to a conclusion that we're talking about right now. A lot of employers are thinking about this. Big offices might not be part of the business future plan. After seeing how well people are working from home, companies could be less willing to deal with expensive offices, big skyscrapers when all this blows over. And Jess Staley, he's the CEO of Barclays, told reporters last week that the notion of putting 7,000 people back in the same building may be a thing of the past.
Well, think about the concept that I experienced when I went to the campus of Pixar so many years ago. You see everyone on that campus. So big tech, Google and Pixar and all these places just started doing this different form of employment. So when we were growing up, it was like Hudsucker Proxy kind of stuff. Like you had a cubicle, the big guy at a corner office, and like when I grew up, it'd be like when I was like working, like I was at McDonald's or on a construction site or something, I'd be like, I got to go to the bathroom, go at lunchtime, finish your shift. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't sit down. There was no personal devices, phone calls or information or any. I mean, if you picked up a newspaper, they tell you, put it down, but then at a certain point, you go to Pixar, it's like people are eating free food. They're playing foosball. They're walking around. They're out there. Oh, they got an archery team set up out in the yard, out on the grounds. And so work became like, well, you don't have to work, but you have to get your shit done.
Right.
And you have to kind of do it on your timetable. Mm-hmm. And we got the food and you got the bathroom, we got the games and we got the whatever. Then if you think about it, once the smartphone kicked in, it was over because the smartphone, like I used to go to work and it'd be like, you don't get to have your TV shows. You don't get to have your information. You don't get to have your whatever it is. You're at work. Mm-hmm. When you're done with work, you can go back and watch your TV shows or read your stuff or talk to who you want to talk to, but not here. Well, now the smartphone gave everyone access to everything all the time. So you're checking your Roto League or your fantasy football, you call your wife, your husband, whatever, friend, text. Once the phone started showing up to work, then we're all kind of on the honor system at that point to get your work done because the distraction part is there. And now the boss is paying for the food in the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, wait a minute, if you're just going to use the bathroom or you want to graze and eat some food and all you have to do is get your work done, let's just do it from home. I'm not going to have to buy a parking structure.
Why are they spending so much money to make it feel like you're at home with the food and the games and the whatever, the breaks and whatever? They could save all that money and just work from home.
But that's the pendulum swinging the other way because kind of to your point, you think of Google and you think of all these places and the whole point was to keep you there and as much of you there as long as possible. There's gyms at your complex, at the Google complex. There's babysitting, there's daycare, you never have to go home again. We have our own grocery store. And now the pendulum has completely swung. Stay home. We don't want to pay for this.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about, obviously, when I was swinging a hammer, you had to show up. You just had to show up. There's no virtual anything. They're jobs where you operate equipment or you're babysitter or whatever. You work the grill at McDonald's. I mean, there's like physical manufacturing, whatever. Like you have to show up. But I don't know, ideas and websites and meetings and stuff, do you really physically need to be there? And the answer is definitely not. Like we could change. I think it's kind of interesting. We kind of did this model where we're like, we need efficient, rapid transit. We need subways and rails. These commuters have to get in, but no one ever thought, well, maybe they don't need to get in at all.
Right.
Like we're doing it, obviously in LA, it's a freeway system that's backed up. It's bumper to bumper. So everyone's like, we need a rail system. It's like, maybe we don't need a rail system.
Right.
Maybe people can stay
home
and do this, do it in their own home. And by the way, do not think this isn't going to be factored in new construction.
Oh, yeah.
So when they're building a whole bunch of lofts in downtown LA, there will not be a mud room, but there will be a media room. The
Right.
thing will have a camera hardwired on it already.
Right.
It'll be laid out. That'll be your workspace from home. Yes,
It's
Brian.
interesting. Have you guys heard that? This is very local news, but Google is opening a headquarters just down the street from me at the old West Side Pavilion Mall at Pico and Overland. And there couldn't be at a more influx time, right? For actually, this used to be a mall, for God's sake, and they're turning into offices. Like, how are they going to fill? I'm sure they can figure out a way, but I'm saying, would it be prudent to fill those offices?
I don't know. I keep looking at radio where we all come from. I keep looking at that big building on Mid-Wilshire and that huge parking structure behind it. And I keep thinking, man, that is a lot of cubic feet and real estate and air conditioning and maintenance and security and taxes and everything. Do we need that huge footprint? I mean, we're all just sitting at home broadcasting now, and everyone's car's in their garage. No one even started it.
To your point about factoring it in, I wonder if it'll be factored into salary negotiations. You're not spending that money anymore, and I'm providing my own tech and office or whatever. I wonder if that's going to start being a thing of the future.
Whatever it is, the jobs that we had at the turn of the century were, school teacher and cop and trash man and factory worker, and every single person that worked in a Ford factory had to show up at a Ford factory, and all the guys that were putting everything together on the floor had to show up, and then their managers and supervisors and everyone above them had to show up as well. We're not manufacturing anything anymore. Like these are ideas. This is all digital. This is code. Like we're not really physically us putting things together. We don't need to assemble anything anymore. Yes, there are places like IKEA, and I guess we're going to need a building with a roof on it where stuff can be and be shipped to us, or we can go pick it up. But most of us, I mean, let's think about it. We're not exactly the prime demo, but think about you, your spouse, people who really needs to head in.
Well, further complicating thing, there's another wrinkle to the story. So Christy works, we mentioned the building in Wilshire. Christy works across the street at the SBE building, the really tall, the tallest one that's on the Wilshire. The Wilshire stretch. And they're having conversations now about reopening the office, letting people back in, blah, 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 at some point, down the road, sometime in May or something. And Christy's like, I don't want to go back in. Like I get everything done here. That's a dangerous. That's too many people. Too many people. They're all using the same elevators. All using the same valet. You hand the keys to the guy. The same guy's grabbing all the keys. It's like I don't want to go in. And I'm like, I don't blame you. You can get everything done from here.
Well, and that's funny because you do hear that a lot, and people are absolutely adjusting. And my thought, for whatever reason, is, but I like going into work. I like the change of scenery. I like seeing the people.
Yeah, agreed.
It would be tough to have to do all this from home. I like that I still go into work I still go to KFI every night. I'm the only one there.
Either way, now more than ever, folks, you are going to have to be in control of your own shit.
Yep.
Because work forced you to shave and get dressed and get up and get over and, whatever. And if everyone's going to be putzing around in their sweatpants now, we're really going to have to keep a tight check on ourselves.
Oh, I'm 100% doing full newscasts in Market 2 with my bra strap showing. So that ship sailed long ago for me.
Seinfeld bought his 917 chassis 022 in 2002. So I already know he's made $8 million on that thing. He bought it on a used car lot. What does that even mean, Max and Pat? how did he buy it on a used car lot?
Like
yeah, that's what he said in his tweet.
Yeah, he doesn't mean it. He doesn't mean that, goofball. It's Steve McQueen's Porsche from Le Mans. I guess it was the one that was used, maybe the hero car that Steve McQueen drove.
Wow.
At Le Mans. You know, famously, I think they took a GT40, which was, you know, the Ford v Ferrari movie. That's the Ford GT40. Now, when they shot Le Mans, like 69 or 70 or whatever they shot Le Mans, Ford had won. The GT40s were super competitive in 66, 67, 68. But by the time they got to 69 or 70, they weren't competitive anymore. The Porsche 917 was dominant. Mm-hmm. So they took a GT40 that they could have got cheap, and they hacksawed the roof off it and made it into a camera car. That's
genius.
Because you need a 200 mile an hour car to stay up with the Porsche.
With the race car, sure.
But the Porsches were super expensive because they were brand new, and this was yesterday's race car that wasn't competitive anymore, and there was no vintage market. Wow. So it's like, take it, hack the roof off. I think Max and Patty, you can probably find a picture of that GT40 with the roof hacked off.
I'll find that, but it was in a used car lot.
Really?
Yeah.
How? It couldn't
Spike
be.
Ferriston saw it in a showroom in L.A. on Wilshire Boulevard in 2002.
Well, the showroom on Wilshire Boulevard, I know what you're talking about. That's a super high-end. I don't think we call it a used car.
Wasn't
lot,
a junkyard.
You might be technically correct, but that's not what we're all thinking of.
Right. It was, I know that place. That place was across from the Red Lobster, I think.
What? Where's
and
the Red Lobster? On
Wilshire, there used to be a Red Lobster, and there used to be a corner. There used to be a bank, and they put a bunch of super high-end cars in there, and it was like a super high-end show. Another thing that's going to go the way of the dodo. Who's going to pay for that kind of real estate when everything's online?
Yep.
So, yeah, that's where we're heading.
Just because, like, now I can't get it out of my head. What was the movie? Was it a movie you showed us with no sound, and when it had sound, we thought the car was going much faster? Remember that clip? What was that?
It's called Rendezvous.
Thank you. That was
and it was a very interesting. There's two interesting experiments. When you watch Rocky or another boxing film, and you're watching it at home, and you have the sound cranked up, it's super exciting, and every punch lands. And when you turn the sound all the way down, you'll see the punches missing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't physically hitting each other, but
right.
you didn't see the gap. The sound connected it for you.
So
and there was this story. So there's this famous bootleg film of a guy who mounted up a camera car. He took a camera and he mounted it down low, and he drove through Paris at dawn, or 6 a.m. and he was hauling ass and blah blah blah. And the legend was some guy took a Ferrari Daytona. They never said who the guy was. They never showed the car. They just showed the POV of like the front bumpers. It tore through the streets of Paris. And at some point, the story came out that the guy was like a film producer or director, and they added the sound of a Ferrari V12 through the whole thing, and it made it so fast. But they're now thinking he may have just been driving like his wife's station wagon, filmed it, and then laid that sound over it. When you lay the sound over it, it turns into a totally different experience. Thus, when I talk to my guys, and I'm driving my 935 Porsche up Lord March's driveway, stop with the generic ZZ Top music, put in the sound of the engine, because it turns it into a completely different experience. And when you watch it without the sound, it slows it down. And when you watch it with the sound, it speeds it up.
That's right. Well, we're talking about all the benefits of working from home, but we know there are some pitfalls because we keep talking about them in the news, whether you're doing a newscast with no pants on, or your lady friend who's not really your lady friend walks by during one of your shots. Well, there's another one. This latest one is University of Miami professor John Peng Zhang, who was fired this month after accidentally sharing with students his X-rated penchant for busty college girls.
All
This is
right.
according to the New York Post.
Yeah.
There it is. There's his tab open. This was discovered by administrators after students just saw it and went crazy, sharing the video on social media, and when they were doing this Zoom screen share, doing a business analytics instruction class. A student called the attention to the bookmark during the class, but Zhang allegedly just continued with the lesson as if it didn't
During
happen.
class.
Within a
During
few
class.
hours, 8 seconds of the video evidence, which was on Zoom, was shared on TikTok like 800,000 times, 800,000 views. Zhang followed up in an email telling students he was investigating the ordeal and asked students to please stop sharing it, and he's since resigned.
I'm going to investigate for the next couple hours.
Well,
Don't bother me.
you know, we're going to have to rethink a few laws or whatever, because if you're bringing in a magazine into the on campus called, you know, busty college girls and sharing them with students or whatever,
Passing
but
them out.
this is kind of you at home, you know, like what do we do with this stuff?
Yeah.
My sister was telling me that my youngest nephew was taking an online class in super hard porn, just pow all over it. Super like, and my sister was like, what kind of porn? And he was like, I didn't want to talk about it. Like crazy novelty made to upset everybody. Boom. Because
coming from the teacher's computer?
No, there's a lot of people just hacking into stuff.
Oh, yeah, the Zoom bombing.
And they're just coming in with Tourette's like scat porn. Tourette scat porn. And look, the whole idea is how outrageous can you be?
Oh, sure.
And you can be pretty damn outrageous if you have access to a computer and you know your way around. And by the way, these kids all grew up with a computer.
Right.
They know what they're doing. This is
their time.
easy for them. And they're dealing with a bunch of 40-year-old, you know, teachers who really don't know it as well as they know it. And there's just a ton of this going on.
Do you think the professor is in more trouble because it was specifically college porn? Or because otherwise, are you porn shaming the guy? Like the guy's allowed to like a porn. He's an adult male.
It's funny you should ask. I cut this part out just because it's a long article and they went through, you know, a million different angles. But they did ask some of the students, and some of the girls were like if it would have been anything else, okay, but like I don't want to go to this guy's class now. I feel weird. So it did come up in the article.
No safe spaces.
Indeed.
Yeah. The unfortunate part of that thing is definitely college and his association with it. That's so is he gone? Is he fired?
He resigned. I imagine there was some pressure to do that.
Sexy economic students.
We're not quite
business analytics.
We're not quite at the point where you could just claim you're hacked for everything now, but we're getting there, right?
Yeah.
Like pretty soon, if there's a picture of anyone naked on the internet, you can go, that's not me. That's someone else's body. They just took my face. And
Yep, that's your
if they can do it with Bill Hader and whoever else, it's pretty impressive. So speaking of cars, NASCAR planning to get back in business on May 17th with a Cup Series race at Darlington Raceway in South Carolina, which is one of 4 it hopes to run without fans during the month of May. So if they pull this off, racing will be the first major sport to return to competition since all this quarantine started.
You know,
and what's safer than being in your own car?
It's funny. A lot of race or NASCAR racetracks already paint all the seats to look like there's an audience in there.
How?
Have you ever seen that?
It doesn't come to mind.
Well, like if you look at a NFL stadium, all the seats are just like blue or red or whatever.
Sure.
They make them all different colors. So it looks kind of like there's a bunch of people there wearing different color T-shirts. It gives your mind like an illusion that it's filled up, even if there's nobody in there, they're not painting faces or anything on seats. They just paint it so it'll give the illusion that there's a crowd there. Yeah. Like you can Chris will find pictures. I don't know if Daytona's that way or Talladega's that way, but some of those big tracks are more modern or refurbished tracks, I guess. We're done with that in mind. So you still kind of get a little bit of that illusion, especially if you're blowing past at 200 miles an hour.
Well, and
yeah,
I was
talking to someone yesterday about NASCAR coming back, and then I was also talking to some of these guys who I was filming this Byron Allen thing for, with all the crazy regulations for filming when they go back into production, like how much how many rules there are going to be when they come back and start getting back into film production.
And how that's going to affect the actual acting and actors. There's not going to be a tight one shot. They're going to be standing on separate parts of the couch, one on each side.
Interesting.
Well, hopefully we'll get some, I don't know, herd immunity or something. I'm optimistic.
Also, yes. I don't remember. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at there's versions that even have, even more colors to it, but you can't tell. It sort of looks like a full stadium.
Just a glance for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know if we talked about it here or not, but what about just digitally adding a crowd, or would that be distracting?
I think if I was watching at home, just like when you watch on any given Sunday or something, and maybe they digitally beef up the crowd or do something like that on the sports movies, then why not?
We're used to
the shot.
Yeah.
Officials in the Swedish city of Lund have spread chicken manure all over their central park to keep people away. And there's a great punchline to this story. This keeps residents from violating their social distancing rules if they choose to celebrate a holiday called Walpurgis Night on Thursday, because people apparently congregate on the lawn and have a good time. A city council member said, "We get the opportunity to fertilize the lawns, and at the same time, it will stink. And so it may not be nice to sit in the park and drink a beer," which apparently they're allowed to do and we're not.
Yeah, it sounds like the Swedish model may be working big picture. They're going to start off like everyone's always like, well, they had more deaths at the beginning. It's like, of course they did. That's how it works if you want to go down that road. But I think when this whole thing shakes out, maybe they can avoid this second wave that everyone is talking about.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm glad that Sweden did what Sweden did, just so we have an A and a B, just so we have some nation to study. That's all. And also, when they're sitting in those outdoor cafes and they're 2 tables apart having a beer, I go, I feel like we could do that in Pasadena.
Feels doable.
Yeah. All right, let's do one more, Gina Grant.
You got it. Well, everybody's on to the meal kits and for all the lazy grub hubbers who don't want to feel so lazy, there might be a nice little compromise for you. As a ramp up to Cinco de Mayo, Taco Bell is now offering an at-home taco bar kit. For $25, you get your shells, you get your tortillas, some nacho chips, some beef, some lettuce, refried beans, cheese, all the stuff, and you just put it together yourself. So you feel like a little home Taco Bell chef, and you can get these delivered. You can get it at the drive-thru, and then it'll give you another 15 minutes of something to do.
It's impossible.
Construct your own taco.
Let me give you like one of my impossible. Got to pack on the pounds sitting home. I was like in my office. It was like Saturday night. I had a couple glasses of whiskey. I had a little buzz going. All of a sudden, I got Natalia's out in the jacuzzi having fun. All of a sudden, McDonald's shows up. And I'm like, God, McDonald's. And it's like I opened the bag at the front door and the fries hit me in the face.
Best
and I got
smell.
a little of that 10:15 Saturday night buzz going. As I reach in, I grab a couple of fries. I'm like, all right. I bring it out to Natalia. And then I set it down, and I'm starting to walk back in, and she's like, they gave us an extra cheeseburger. And I'm like,
of course they did.
Give me that goddamn cheeseburger. I didn't remember eating it, but I was like, I haven't eaten a McDonald's, just a regular McDonald's cheeseburger, just flat out ketchup and cheese. I haven't eaten one of those in 31 years.
Yeah.
Goddamn, I polished that thing off.
How was it? You don't remember?
It tasted exactly like a McDonald's cheeseburger. No, I don't really remember, but at the time I remember thinking, this tastes exactly like the ones I used to make at McDonald's. McDonald's in 1980.
Exactly like the one Jimmy pinned to the wall for a year.
That was Canadian bacon.
Oh,
Come on, Gina.
Come on, Gina.
I knew it was McDonald's.
All right. Should we bring it home with Gina Grad?
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
That was the news with Gina Grad.